It was one heck of a national signing day. It was great. I mean, only a good 2 people have signed. Everything happened in early national signing day. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a discussion, a little bit of the topic here for college football's Pigskin Frenzy Day, episode 197 of Pigskin Frenzy, inching closer and closer to that 200 mark of Pigskin Frenzy. We're going to discuss today, is early signing day worth it? Or should we revert back to the original signing day all in February? We're going to discuss that. We're going to talk about the early signing day. We're going to talk about the recruits there. We're going to talk about the people who signed last week and Wednesday. We're going to discuss the top 10 recruiting class and who needed to finish strong and who, surprisingly did finish quite strong and who surprised us in recruiting day. National Signing Day recap. Let's go. Recruiting recap and recruiting episode recap right now. Welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris. And whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Apple, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, after watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Apple, Podbean, just follow on there. Also, share around with others if you can indeed be. X and Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow out the pages there. You're going to get college football and NFL highlights, thoughts about the game of football from me. There is a trivia question on Instagram story. Go and answer today's college football question as well as all things of today for Pigskin Frenzy. The website's www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. You're not going to want to miss it there. You're also going to see and hear, updates from the episodes, news, highlights about the episodes about Pigskin Frenzy, home about me page, learn more about me as your podcast host. There is also a contact info down below. You can contact, name, email info. I'll answer the questions off air or on air if need be. There is also affiliations and platforms page and store page. Affiliations and store is coming soon to Pigskin Frenzy, but there is also a platforms page. All the platforms I just mentioned, go and click on that platform to see which one's your favorite listening style of the show. Guys, college football day today. We are getting ready to rock and roll. Recruiting was a doozy. It's always a doozy in February and through December and February. Now we're moving on to the 2026 recruiting class and the recruiting cycle of 2026 and who is committed to where in 2026. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in future episodes. 2025 recruiting. Let's discuss it. And we're going to talk about our top 10 and let's see who finished in the top 10 because it is quite the doozy. Number one starting out, finishing out right now, number one starting out, and we're going to discuss it now, it was Texas. No surprise there. Sark is building something in Austin, and he is doing something quite well right there, right? In Austin, Texas, and he is doing really, really good things down there. So he's building around Arch. He's got guys like Jamie French coming, Cade Phillips on defense. He's got Jamie French at the receiver position, building around Arch Manning, and just building a good and solid football program down there in Austin. Number two is Georgia. Kirby Smart once again adding more depth and building rosters there to try to make another run at the national championship. The number two recruiting class in college football is Georgia. Number three, it was Ohio State, but Alabama jumped them. Kalen DeBoer and Alabama finished strong, jumped Ohio State at number 3. They finished at number 3. So SEC representing strong in the top 3, all SEC top 3 for this class of 2025. Alabama and Kalen DeBoer finished strong in DeBoer's second signing day class. Ohio State, first true signing day classes. These are all Kalen DeBoer recruits. Ohio State, number 4, finished the defending national champions finished in the top 5 at number 4. They were at 3, then they went to 5, and they finished at 4. They did really, really good in this recruiting class. Ryan Day did a heck of a job finishing out strong. Number 5 is Oregon. Oregon and Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning and Oregon is building something. I've said that Oregon, with recruiting classes in the transfer portal, with NIL, with all the resources that Dan Lanning is using, he is accommodating to all resources and using everything to try to build for more playoff runs and more championship appearances in the Big Ten. Not only that, he's trying to make a run in the national championship. Will Dan Lanning achieve that? That's the one thing you can take away from this the signing class from Dan Lanning in Oregon. Will they win a national championship? It's almost inevitable at this point that they could win a national title by the way he's recruiting and by the way he's building his rosters each and every year. Strategically building his rosters each and every year. So watch out for Oregon. That's all I got to say. And Dan Lanning. Michigan is at 6. They went from 7 to 6. They finished at number 6. Sharon Moore, heck of a job on the recruiting trail and in the portal. Nice job by Michigan. Building around number 1 recruit Bryce Underwood. Originally committed to LSU, signed with Michigan after, flipped his commitment and signed with Michigan after a strong NIL package, bringing a lot of guys and surrounding him with a lot of guys at Michigan in the big house in Ann Arbor. Can Sharon Moore use his freshman talent that he signed and can it, lean in and bleed into the 2025 season? Only time will tell, but Michigan is not going anywhere anytime soon. Sharon Moore is doing a heck of a job there. He's recruiting well, and he recruited well in this class for sure. Number 7 is Auburn. Auburn is a little bit of a tricky spot right now because Hugh Freeze is on the hot seat. But can Auburn, with the number 7 recruiting class, does this kind of help him after a strong top 10 recruiting class and finish and doing well in the transfer portal? Can this bleed in to the season and translate into winning football games? Only time will tell, but it's going to have to bleed into winning football games. This is too strong of a class for them to not make an impact in 2025. So let's see what Auburn does. But I think after a strong class and a strong finish in the top 10, they're going to have to win some games, and this is going to have to translate into winning games here for the 2025 season and beyond. Number 8 on the list is Florida. Florida finishing in the top 10 recruiting class. Billy Napier, I see what you're doing. Billy Napier promised a top 10 recruit, a top 10 to top 5 recruiting class for the 2024 year. Did not pan out the way he wanted to, but he finished out strong in the 2024 season and surprised everyone. Under a tough schedule, Billy Napier showed some heart and finished out strong, beating LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. Did they lose to Texas? Yes. Did they lose to Georgia? Yes, but they played Georgia close. Florida surprised a lot of people. They are going to be ranked going into this season, no doubt. And this recruiting class, number 8, finishing in the top 10 and finishing as the number 1 team in Florida in recruiting in college football in the state of Florida. Winning the state of Florida is a huge plus for Billy Napier in Florida because they were 3rd or 4th, I think 3rd last year when it came to the battleground state of Florida in recruiting. They won that battleground state and they got guys on board. Billy Napier is translating and is with his message. They're keeping him around for another year. Is he on the hot seat? Who knows? But he saved his job last season and it translate and bled into recruiting, and a lot of players have bought into his message. So let's see what happens with Florida. Watch out with Florida because their recruiting class to build around this young quarterback with DJ Lagway it's impressive. And what they're doing now is building and strategically building. So watch out for Billy Napier in Florida coming into the 2025 season. Number 9 is Texas A&M. Mike Elko finishing with a strong recruiting class. And not only that, A&M has a strong transfer portal class as well. Marcel Reed at quarterback, but a quarterback competition could arise in the spring, if you know what I mean. We'll talk about that in the transfer portal episode coming up next Tuesday. We're going to have a transfer portal rankings episode and talk about the transfer portal on next Tuesday's Pigskin Frenzy episode. It's all about the portal next week before we kick it off with our Frenzy college football games, our top 50 Frenzy 2024 college football games of the season for the 2024 season. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but we'll talk about that. Quarterback competition can happen, but Texas A&M finishing strong. Top 10 class. Mike Elko's doing a heck of a job. Let's see how it translates into the 2025 season. I'm not worried about A&M. A&M's got the resources, the NIL packages, the money, the class, the strength. They got a lot that what most schools don't have. So I'm not worried about Mike Elko at the time being. Not right now, to say the least. And number 10 to round it out is LSU. I said last week that LSU needed to finish strong and needed to probably get a couple of guys on board to move up in the rankings, from last Wednesday. They did not move up in the rankings, but they do have the number 1 transfer portal class and the number 10 high school recruiting class in the 2025 recruiting cycle. Number 10 is a good spot. Don't get me wrong. It's top 10 and LSU finishes top 10, but I'm used to seeing LSU finish a little bit a little bit, higher than number 10. I'm used to seeing 5 or 4 or maybe even 6 out of LSU, and they finished at 10. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. They're one of the teams that I think needed to finish strong. We're going to get into that here a little bit in the minute. That rounds out the top 10 and finishes out the top 10. That is your top 10 for the 2025 recruiting class, the final rankings for the 2025 class. And now we just wait for the 2026 class, and we move on to recruiting the 2026 cycle. Let's talk about some of these early signing day members, guys like Bryce Underwood, and who can make a big impact coming into the 2025 season. I think Bryce Underwood is the name that everyone's going to look out for, and why not? I would too. Bryce Underwood is probably going to be a day one starter for Michigan, I would assume. Mikey Keene from Fresno State, the transfer quarterback from Fresno State, could be one, but I would think Bryce Underwood is going to be it would be a transition period, and Bryce Underwood can get reps and get ready to start for Michigan. He may be a day one starter, who knows? But Bryce Underwood is looking like a quarterback prodigy. But there's either two things that happen in college football, right? You're either going to be a bust or you're going to be a superstar and everything that people say that you are. Could Bryce Underwood be a bust, or could Bryce Underwood be that guy that, okay, that's that dude. He is the man. He could lead this program to a future national championship before he goes pro. Who knows? But Bryce Underwood is the number one recruit. Michigan has him. Let's see what he does. I'm curious to see if he is that guy. Is he a bust, or is he going to be that superstar prodigy that everybody says he is? Only time will tell about Bryce Underwood. I think for Texas, if you look at Cade Phillips, the defensive back for Texas, I think he can be a huge immediate day one starter for the Texas Longhorns. If you look at him and what he has done in high school, he was originally committed to LSU, I believe, and then flipped to Texas. He is a epic player. He is a ball hawk on defense. He can make dynamic plays, and he is a future star, I think, defensively in college football. There's a lot of guys in this class that can be game changers, and Cade Phillips, to me, can be one of them. I think if you want to speak about LSU, there's one guy at LSU that signed in the secondary spot. His name's DJ Pickett. He is one of the top defensive backs in the 2025 class, and LSU landed a doozy with him. DJ Pickett is a guy that is no nonsense. He is a lockdown defender. He's tall and a little bit lanky, which provides the leverage against receivers that play against him. I think DJ Pickett can do a heck of a job for LSU secondary. He can provide a good ball hawking ability, and I think if he gets enough reps and time, especially if he starts day one, everything's can go his way, right? I think DJ Pickett needs to start, get some reps in, and he could be an immediate game changer for the secondary for the Tigers. I think if you want to look at some signings, and if you want to look at some signings, that happened last weekend. Last week, Zaire Mathis, edge rusher, originally committed to Ohio State, flipped and signed with Maryland. A huge pickup for Mike Locksley, who Mike Locksley in Maryland right now is a little bit on the downward trend of the hot seat, right? Zaire Mathis is a good pickup for their defense. It helps him out a lot. He also will have the room and leverage to transfer if he becomes a star at Maryland. Who knows? He may not. He's out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right? Go Birds, right? If you want to look at that and think about that, Zaire Mathis can make a immediate impact for the Maryland defense and in the Big Ten. So watch out for Zaire Mathis coming into this season. That's a strong pickup for for the Maryland Terps. Ty Haywood, originally committed to Michigan, flipped his commitment and signed with Michigan last week. He is all for Michigan. Bryce Underwood gets help. Ty Haywood can be a solid player for the Michigan Wolverines, and they compare him a lot to compare him a lot to future NFL talents. They remind him of Tyler Smith of the Dallas Cowboys. One does. Also, somebody compares him to a lot of they see a lot of Joe Alton in him in a way, but Tyler Smith is the main comparison to the Dallas Cowboys that Ty Haywood gets. He is now with Michigan. He is a future prospect that could be a heck of a talent in the NFL and in the Big Ten and the Wolverines for years to come. So they get a good talent there, and Michigan jumped after that. They were at number 7, I believe, and they jumped from 7 to 6 and finished in the top, in the top 6 or right outside the top 5 with this pickup. So those are some immediate players that can make a huge difference. Well, when I mean a huge difference, I mean a huge difference for, National Signing Day and for these teams here for the college football season. We're only going to have like a 35-minute episode. So if you like what you're seeing, keep plugging into Pigskin Frenzy and following along on everything for college football, and keep on plugging along as we have more all-season coverage, coming in during the off season. Look, all season's crucial, but we're going to get through it, guys. X and Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. Keep plugging in all platforms. Pigskin Frenzy podcast on YouTube as well. Keep plugging in. Leave comments down below. Who do you think, which player is going to leave an immediate impact? Comment down below on YouTube as well. Keep on plugging in, guys. 4,500 listeners to the show as well. Thank you for keeping on plugging in to Pigskin Frenzy. Much appreciated. Much love. I love you all, and we're praying for you all as well. Guys, let's talk about the surprise teams who finished surprisingly, and then we'll end it with teams who probably should have finished strong going into the season, and we'll wrap up this National Signing Day and recruiting recap for the 2025 year before moving on to next Tuesday's episode of the Transfer Portal and talking about the Transfer Portal class and big players and big impacts made in the portal for next Tuesday. But that's next Tuesday. Let's do the surprise teams in this one. Who finished off good and surprisingly going into the 2025 year? Well, if you want to look, if you want to look at some teams who finished off quite surprisingly, you look at South Carolina, obviously. South Carolina, number 18, and finished 18th in the rankings. I thought they were going to finish a lot lower than that, but Shane Beamer's onto something. Shane Beamer is onto something, y'all. He is doing quite well, building around Lenore Sellers, building around Stewart on the defense, building around Stewart on the defense. Kyle Kennard is now at the draft, and, building around Stewart on defense. Guys, look. This defense and this team for the Gamecocks could be a dark horse contender in the college football playoff. Remember what I said? Bookmark what I said. I'm just saying, South Carolina could be a dark horse for the college football playoffs. So pay attention to what Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks are doing. They finished strong and a lot better than I expected in high school recruiting. So watch out for what South Carolina is going to do in recruiting. We're going to talk about them next week as well. If you want to talk about who finished strong as well, and surprisingly strong, Georgia Tech, like I mentioned last week, number 21. Brent Key's doing an amazing job at Georgia Tech. He's got some grounded and some good recruits. 6 4-stars, 17 3-stars, an amazing job. He had 240 composite points out of the 24/7 sports rankings for recruiting in National Signing Day. Finishes at number 21. Georgia Tech is a team that you got to watch out for in the ACC. Haynes King and a lot of guys there coming up, right? And up and coming for Georgia Tech. So Georgia Tech could be a strong contender for an ACC title spot coming up this season. Heck of a job that Georgia Tech is finishing off with at 21. 22, Nebraska, Matt Rule finishing off great. The Cornhuskers finishing off great, trying to build around Dylan Raiola at quarterback. They're doing a heck of a job there too. They're building a roster. Could they be a team to look out for in the Big Ten? Who knows? But they did surprisingly well in my regard in recruiting. If you want to talk about somebody that has done well in recruiting as well, Mississippi State. Jeff Levy, and you're going to think, dude, Mississippi State, really? Jeff Levy could be on a mission in his second season. Finished quite well in the transfer portal rankings, and we're going to talk about that next week as well. Finishing off great in recruiting. 28th, finished off 28th ranked in recruiting. I thought they were going to finish off worse than that. They finished in the top 30 in recruiting. Surprisingly, Mississippi State did not win a single conference game last year. They fought Ole Miss hard, but then they ended up getting beat bad late in the end. Mississippi State is a team that you got to watch out for in Jeff Lebby's second season. Mississippi State might be on to something with Blake Shapen at quarterback. Michael Van Buren was the quarterback, transferring to LSU as their backup QB and potential starter for next year for LSU next year. So if you want to look at Mississippi State and what they're doing, Jeff Lebby's onto something, man. I would watch out for what Jeff Lebby's going to do down in Vegas and in Starkville. What he's doing. Pay attention to him, because we're going to dive deep into more Mississippi State next week in the portal. But just fair warning. Watch out for what they're doing. Recruiting is good and a lot better than expected. And transfer portal-wise, they're a lot better than expected as well. Let's see what State does. I'm kind of curious. They may not win a whole conference game again. Who knows? I don't know. It's just a prediction. But the way they're building, it's a lot better than advertised. I'm just saying. So, surprisingly, State was a surprise team there as well. If you want to look at a surprise team as well, I think Maryland. You can add Maryland, in there. Maryland finishing at 25 with 228 composite points from 24/7 Sports. No 5 stars. They have 6 4 stars and 15 3 stars. Zahir Mathis being the latest addition on edge. Maryland and Mike Locksley is doing everything they can to block out the noise of, I'm on the hot seat, I'm on this, I'm on that. But Maryland is building. They're building in your high school recruiting. Now, can it translate to wins on the field? That's the only thing. I think 25 is a good spot. They finish in the top 25 in recruiting, so that's really good for Mike Locksley and Maryland. Congratulations to them. Can it translate to wins? Can Mike Locksley translate that to wins? Because the hot seat talk is only going to intensify. It really is. They need to win, and win quickly, especially in the 2025 season. I think those are the teams that finish strong in recruiting. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments on YouTube, on Instagram, on X. Message me at Pigskin_Frenzy. Comment down below on this YouTube video down below. Let me know what you guys think, and tell me who finished strong and who was y'all surprise teams for this season, and for this recruiting cycle for 2025 before we head into the 2025 season. Let's talk about teams that really needed this, and we'll wrap up this episode of Pigskin Frenzy and recap everything. Have our recap there. But let's talk about teams that really needed to finish strong and really needed this kind of win, right? But let's talk about it really quick and let's discuss it and dive deep into it before we wrap up today's episode of Pigskin Frenzy, episode 197 of Pigskin Frenzy, may I add, of college football. But let's talk about who finished strong and who needed to finish strong. Well, first, let me just add this. Let's talk about who finished strong, the obvious ones, and then we'll talk about who needed to finish strong more. The obvious ones who finished strong were Texas, #1 ranked recruiting class. Nothing much really to say there. They're building something nice, and they're looking like they're primed for a national title run next season. Okay, so that's 1. #2, Georgia. 3, Ohio State. I think Alabama could be said as well. The top 5 all pretty much have finished strong. I think if you want to go with really who finished strong, Auburn, Florida, and Michigan. Those 3 schools finished quite well. I think they finished strong enough. Now it's got to translate into wins. I think it's really got to translate into wins, and they got to show them, okay, Billy Napier's got to show at Florida, okay, I finished with the number 8 recruiting class, right? But I have to translate that into wins to, 1, save my job and save my status here at Florida, but also prove that Florida is on the right track. So that's #1. Auburn, Hugh Freeze, I'm always a good recruiter, but I got to translate that into wins as well and show the faithful here at Auburn, Alabama, that between the hedges, Auburn is going to be a threat, and it's going to be a threat in the 2025 season and beyond. So Auburn's got to show that as well. That's number 2. But for Michigan, last but not least, we got to show that by getting Bryce Underwood, the #1 recruit overall in this class and the #1 quarterback recruit in this class, with the NIL and the packages that we paid him and other players to flip from other schools to get to Michigan and to build around Bryce Young, that Michigan is here to stay and beyond, and that we're going to make more than just one run in the Big Ten title and in the college football playoff. So It's got to translate. I think for those three schools, they got to prove that it's got to translate into wins, and it's got to translate into winning consistently for the sake of them and for the sake of the programs moving forward. So I think those are the three schools that finished strong. Now it's just got to translate. If you want to look at the schools that, you can add one more as well to that list. USC finished quite nicely. I think that recruiting-wise, they did well. That's definitely got to translate. Let's see how that translates. Lincoln Riley, I've already talked about that, but Lincoln Riley and the coaching staff have to translate that into wins heading into the 2025 year and to show that, hey, we're still around in the Big Ten, but we're still around in college football as well. So they finished decent, inside the top 15, but they got to translate that into wins for the 2025 year and beyond as well. Let's talk about teams that needed to finish stronger. I think LSU, like I said last week, needed it a little bit more. I think they needed to finish strong, probably at that 6 range. I think that would be suffice. I think they needed to finish strong in terms of they finished strong in the portal, and we're going to talk about that because they needed that, and they finished quite nicely in the portal. So it's a kind of a different approach how I'm talking in the portal next week. But if we want to talk about high school recruiting, I think they could have finished a little bit better. You're going to think, dude, they finished inside the top 10. Yes, but I think they could have finished a lot better inside the top 10. I think they need more leverage with high school recruits, and it translates to the future of their program. It's good for top 10 recruits. They got a top 10 recruiting class, the number 1 transfer portal class, but they need to translate that into coaching and wins. They're going all in. They're pulling an Ohio State. They are pulling an Ohio State. Like they did when Michigan was winning a national championship, Ohio State was building a roster to win the national championship. LSU's doing the same thing. LSU's doing the same thing Ohio State did. They're building a roster to win the national championship. Now, it's all about coaching. They're bringing guys. They've brought guys back. Harold Perkins is coming back for the 2025 season. They got Whit Weeks coming back in the linebacker spot. They got guys coming in like DJ Pickett, guys like in the transfer portal. Obviously, we'll get into that next week. They got some guys, but can it translate into wins? And it's all going to come down to coaching. Can Brian Kelly be the coach and outcoach a lot of guys and outcoach people to make the college ball playoff? I think they're a playoff team in 2025 right now, but we will see what happens as we move forward. LSU, I think, needed to finish it to show more leverage for high school recruits, but it's all coming down to Brian Kelly at this point. Now, if you want to talk about who else needed it, Oklahoma needed it more as well. I think Brent Venables in Oklahoma finished at 17, hit the mic, 17. Yeah, they need it more. I think they desperately need it. I think that if you look at what they are doing and how they're building, if you want to look at, coming into this season, he's calling plays defensively now. He's pretty much the defensive coordinator for this team as well as the head coach. He needs to finish strong this season. They have a heck of a quarterback coming in John Mater from Washington State, transferring in from Washington State, a heck of a quarterback and an experienced gunslinger at quarterback. So they got a good quarterback coming in, but can it translate into wins? Can they win and can they play good offensively and defensively enough to, finish stronger in their second SEC season? Otherwise, Brent Venables is not going to last much longer in Norman. And I hate to say that because I like me some Brent Venables. I really do. But I really, really want them to try to pull out something out of the bag to translate it into wins. And I think this was the first step, and it didn't go as planned. I think they really needed inside the top 15 or at least at number 10. I really think Oklahoma needed that, but they couldn't pull that away. They finished slightly lower than I expected them to in this, and I think they desperately need to finish strong. That's another one. I think, to me, who really needed to finish stronger was Florida State. I think Florida State, after that crushing defeat and crushing season, it's kind of hard for them to finish the way they finished, right? I mean, it's understandable why they finished at 19. They finished at 19 with 244 composite points in the 24/7 sports rankings. It's okay. I think they were going to finish in the top 20. Still good. Surprisingly, they finished in the top 20 after the season they had. But coming off of a year and a half ago, now going to be 2 seasons ago, the Orange Bowl, almost going to the college football playoff and winning the ACC championship, Florida State should have been a little bit higher on that list. But guys don't see it that way because they look at what happened during the previous season. And they sucked during the previous season. They were not good. They were horrible. They were not good. But here's the deal. It doesn't mean that they could do their best in recruiting and try to leverage guys to come to Tallahassee for this season. Hey, we got Gus Malzahn on board. We have Gus Malzahn on board on offense. We want you to kind of run this offense, lean into this offense and run this offense, right? Whole new coaching staff lined up. It's something to believe in, right? But a lot of people were skeptical of it. A lot of recruits were skeptical of it when they chose to sign elsewhere. I think Florida State probably needed to finish stronger than they did at 19, but it's understandable the way and why they did finish at 19. But Florida State's at 19. I think last but not least, who probably needed it. I was going to say North Carolina, but North Carolina is more understandable, so I understand that. I think, surprisingly, Penn State finishing at 15. I think after the season they had, Penn State to me is one to conclude everything is a surprise there. I think Penn State, they are in the top 15. They were at 13, but to round out the top 15 is Penn State. I think Penn State could have been at least at 9 or 8. I honestly do. I think after the season that James Franklin and company had, they're bringing Jim Knowles in from Ohio State. I think that defensively, offensively, they have the guys and they have the recruiting staff and the coaching staff to recruit within that top 10 range and not in that top 8 range as well. I'm surprised that they finished where they finished, but listen, it's understandable. It happens, but I think that was a shocker to me that they finished at 15. I thought they would have finished much higher than they did. It's not going to hurt them any. I think that they got guys coming back and enough veteran players coming back to where they're going to be in the Big Ten title hunt again. They're going to be in the college football playoff hunt again as well, and they're going to be in contention. So it's not going to hurt them that bad, especially on offense. But I think surprisingly, finishing at 15 for the future of the Penn State football program, I'm surprised they finished at 15. And I get where the money is and NIL and everything there, but it just strikes me a little bit of a surprise because I think Penn State's more of a school that could finish in the top 10 and finish around that 8 mark in the rankings. But those are my surprise teams who I thought would have finished stronger than they did and who I think should have finished stronger, than they did. That just about wraps up everything for Pigskin Frenzy. That was our National Signing Day coverage and recap. That just about does it for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram, at Pigskin_Frenzy. Like each post, comment down below. Episode updates, news and highlights, thoughts from across college football, NFL football, as well as all things of the day for Pigskin Frenzy. Go and answer trivia question and trivia post on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question. There's also the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com, all things of the day for Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, big thank you for taking some time out of your Tuesday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. We were going to be back Thursday. We're going to recap the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 59. Eagles are the Super Bowl champions. We're going to recap that. We're going to discuss that, discuss the game. We're going to recap the 2024 season. We're going to talk about some of the moves that have happened and that were announced during Super Bowl Sunday that are going to affect the golf season. And we're going to have a special announcement. We're going to recap the 2024 NFL season, and there's going to be a special announcement at the end of that episode on Thursday. You're not going to want to miss this NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy on Thursday. It can change the trajectory of Pigskin Frenzy kind of as we know it and of this podcast as we know it. We will talk about it then until Thursday. NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy on Thursday. I'm Joel Norris signing off. We will see you then. Guys, we're praying for you all. Without the Lord Jesus, we wouldn't be doing this podcast. We praise him, and all praise be to him for doing this podcast. We love Jesus, and if you want to connect, and if you want to, get to know Jesus, we can contact, we can talk about it, and we can discuss how Jesus can be your Lord and Savior. Guys, thank you so much, and thank you for being, just listening to this show. Until Thursday, again, Joel Norris signing off. We're praying for you all. With everybody saying amen, but also, guys, stay the course.